We here on the Culture Wave have mentioned a couple of times to mark December 26th on your calendar as a very special Netflix series returns amid huge anticipation worldwide. The follow-up to Korea's award-winning mega hit Squid Game 2 will be released after a 3-year wait. To talk a little bit about what we can expect from the second season, we are joined by Jae Soh, professor and filmmaker at Seoul Institute of the Arts. Welcome, Professor Soh.
Nice to be back.
So, Professor Soh, we've waited for 3 years, more than 3 years. Let's get right into it. What are your expectations about Squid Game Season 2?
I would say more of the same but better. It's like the basic thing. But basically, you know, as we all know, Squid Game, when it came out in 2021, it's now considered like the most watched television series on Netflix. It was a big hit in about 94 countries, and I think the views are over a billion, like 1.65 billion people have watched it. So, you know, it really made sort of a, I remember it was during the pandemic too, so it made such a splash, and also it garnered so many awards. You know, it won for the Golden Globe. It also was one of the first, I think it was the first non-English speaking series to win an Emmy, and it won it for the director and also the actors for the show, Lee Jung-jae. So there's a huge expectation about it. It's coming out, you know, this month on the 20th, right after Christmas. So we'll see. You know, it's something that I think a lot of people are expecting to sort of continue the story because it ended on a cliffhanger. Yeah.
And speaking of continuing the story, what about the plot? Is it an extension, the storyline, is it an extension from the first season?
Yes, it is. It's a continuation. As you remember, spoiler alert, if you haven't watched the first one, basically it ended with Lee Jung-jae, the main character, vowing to avenge. You know, he won, he was the contestant that won the Squid Game, but he wanted to, I think it was a scene at the airport where he was about to take off and then basically he's coming back. So it kind of ended there and we're going to pick it up from that point. And now, you know, basically the plot is revenge. You know, it's basically him coming back to confront the, I think it was called the front man, played by Lee Byung-hun. So when we come back, there was the older man who used to be a contestant was actually, you know, the front man, but he died, so he took over the position, Lee Byung-hun. So basically, it's him, and then in the first season, also Lee Byung-hun had a brother who was a cop. That sort of, we saw him sort of, you know, fall off a cliff, but he comes back as well. And so in this season, you know, basically the way I look at it is, you know, it's revenge. Also, there are new rules to the games. So I heard that there's basically, you know, if you watch the first season, you had, you know, at first when the contestants come, they had a choice to keep going or leave. And then they were stuck there playing all the games. So basically this time, every game, they have a choice of, it's like OX. Do I want to stay? Do I want to go? And the reason why director Hwang Dong-hyun did that was because he wanted to sort of polarize the groups more. And then, of course, there's the games itself. We had, you know, red light, green light, you know, 달고나, like there are all these like Korean games that became like a national, international sort of sensation. Now the new games are much more, I think, based on you have to cooperate with each other to win the game. So there's more interaction between, you know, the contestants. So a lot of the same, but as I said, you know, the same but better.
It's quite interesting. So when comparing the first and the second seasons, what's different and what are the factors in the new one that would raise expectations, do you think?
Well, I think continuing the same characters, I think one of the reasons Squid Game was such a hit was because the main character, Lee Jung-jae, you know, he plays a character named Song Ji-yeon. And in this story, he actually starts out as kind of a buffoon. You know, you see him like he's just kind of sliding by life. He's trying to steal money from his mother, things like that. But in this one, he has a purpose. He's a changed man. And so, you know, we had a character that kind of fell into this, whereas now the story is about, I would say, maybe the second act or the third act of the entire sort of legacy of this thing. He's coming back to sort of take care of business. He wants to bring down the whole game. But of course, you know, you're fighting against the system, I think. So in a lot of ways, the reason why Squid Game was a huge hit was because many people saw this as an allegory of life itself. You know how right now the world is very polarized. You know, Korea, we're going through some stuff here. And the US had an election that was very polarizing. So it was during the pandemic. That's the one thing that's different. We don't have COVID this time.
Right.
So I think, are people going to really flock to see this? But I think they will, because the world is in a state of flux, and it really reflects this, so the series. I think that part of it is the same, but it's going to be in a different sort of like a very frenetic mode.
I see. Now, Professor Soh, you already mentioned some of the big names here, Lee Jung-jae, Lee Byung-hun, and we also have Wi Ha-jun and Kong Yu. Those actors are expected to reappear,
Yes.
but we also have some new cast members that are joining for the second season. So any specific expectations, or if there are any, maybe also concerns?
Yeah. So basically, you have a new slate of, you have everybody from Kang Han-il, which is really big, Im Si-wan, also Yang Dong-gun. These are huge names. But the controversial name here is Choi Sung-hyun, who is Top from Big Bang. So the reason that was a controversy is because, as you know, 2016, he was caught smoking marijuana. So I think he was tried in military court because he was doing his military service at the time. So the probation period ended on that, and I think Director Hwang gave him a chance, but there's also controversy that, other actors gave him the opportunity to do it. But I think Director Hwang in an interview said, I was attracted to him not because of these controversial things, but basically because, he's a good actor. I've been watching him, and also the character is very similar to him. So I think we're going to expect that. But I think what's really great about this series is I really miss some of the characters in the first season, but unfortunately, Hwang Dong-yeol killed them all.
Many died, yes.
So maybe a flashback or two, but I think, everything from Chung Ho-young was a great character. Basically all these characters that had so many stories, but you can't really bring them back. So you have these new stories, and I think there's a story about a mother and a son. There's a couple. There's somebody from a military background. So we're kind of seeing new characters come out of all these stars staying and doing this stuff. Yeah.
But with dramas, you never know. There are resurrections in other K-dramas.
And season 1 was released in September 2021 ahead of Korea's Chuseok holiday, and as you said, also during COVID times as well. This time the series will be open to watch a day after Christmas on December 26th. Do you think there's a reason behind, the day of this outcoming of the drama series?
Yeah, well, in 2021, it was released during Chuseok, which is in September. And so that's like a huge, in Korea, it's like the biggest holiday. So usually movies, series, they all launch then because people watch it. But at the time, again, COVID, you were stuck at home. So you had that. But the 26th date is basically a day after Christmas. And as you know, not so much in Korea. I see Christmas things around here, but in America, like I remember there'd be Christmas going on in October.
Yeah.
It's basically it's not only just a holiday, but it's also selling. A lot of sales going on, people going shopping, things like that. So, in the U.S., like the Christmas, it goes to New Year's, which is like 4 or 5 days, and then it connects to New Year's holiday. So you have this long sort of, I would say, maybe for some people up to 10 days of just doing what they want to do. So it's a perfect time for them to launch. So it's sort of a new series where people are going to be, not going to work, but being sort of like on holiday. And what do we do at night? Let's watch Squid Game.
Yeah, that's a good answer. So, we heard leading up to the release, a variety of events have been or are being held in different countries also around the world. Can you explain some of those events?
Yeah, actually, these events already happened. Like in Seoul, there was one at DDP, Dongdaemun Plaza, which it was on the 9th. You had a big thing with Lee Byung-hun and everybody being there, and there was like a dance crew that did things. I think I saw pictures of it. It was, you have a very unusual thing with the Squid Game design, like Aisha's photographs. So basically they made a stage out of that. So they had that in LA, which happened on I think the 18th. They had a 5K run that was based on the, Squid Game thing. So you had Lee Jung-jae and everybody participating in this event. And I heard in London, which also happened, they had a concert. And I saw sort of stuff on YouTube where basically, they also had a sort of a Squid Game-like thing where people contributed to playing the games. And if you won, you got to watch the series earlier. So, so all these events to sort of promote. Yeah.
Now, Professor Soh, in some cases, the second season, people might be disappointed about the second season after watching the first, but what about Squid Game Season 2? Do you think it has the potential to continue the impact made in Season 1? The big question.
Right. all these huge hits like Sweet Home, you know, there are all these like Netflix shows that in the second season people were like, it's not as good as the first.
Or
so
Hellbound.
you know, sequels always have that risk. I think even in movies, it's always like the sequel doesn't really, you know, because people saw something and it's kind of disappointing that it doesn't live up to the hype. But then there are also successes like the Star Wars series, I would say, or like if you look at The Godfather, some people say the second one, the sequel is better than the first. So Squid Game, I think it's made so well. The storytelling is so well done, the art direction, everything about it is, there are little Easter eggs, so many, you know, ways that you could kind of interpret this that I think maybe it won't hit the numbers of audiences that watch it, but I think so many people are hyped to watch it. And as I mentioned earlier, the world is in a state of flux. Korea, we had martial law, there's confusion about that. I think Squid Game could be that sort of like lever that people will go to push because they're stressed out. It's a way for them to sort of de-stress from watching it. So as director Hwang said, you know, basically, you know, when he made it, it was because the world was so difficult and hard to live in, and he feels like now it's even worse. So.
All right, it is December 13th, which means we have 13 days until the second series is released. I'm very much looking forward that we maybe could talk about this once it's out. So thank you very much, Professor Soh, for your insights today.
My pleasure.
And thank you, Walter, as always. Hope you have a great weekend and see you next week.
See you next week.